Hey folks, welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my best reads of 2018. I was a bit not sure what to talk about this weekend, and then I thought, well, it's still January, I can talk about my best reads. So I've gone through and picked out the books that I gave 5 stars to in 2018, not including graphic novels and comics. There are a few of those, but these are basically the books and short stories, novellas that I really loved in 2018. So the first couple are ones that I have read on Kindle or on podcast, and they are, funnily enough, both by Tansy Rayner Roberts. I gave 5 stars to Merry Happy Valkyrie, a holiday novella, which was a very cute novella. It was set at Christmas in Tasmania. It was about a little country town where it always snows. Even in the midst of summer, which is what Christmas is in Tasmania. And it was all mixed up with Norse mythology, and there was the lesbian romance, and that was really awesome. I also gave 5 stars to Halloween Is Not a Verb, which was this year's Sheep Might Fly podcast story in the universe, Belladonna University universe. So this is the universe that Tansy writes short stories in, where magic and the mundane are all mixed together, and there's a university in Tasmania, and there's a band, Fake Geek Girl, there's a band, and so this was the latest installment of that, and it was a Halloween themed story, where basically the entire band plus associates decamped to our heroine's place for Halloween to see their mothers, and then magical shenanigans ensued. So that was a lot of fun as well, and I gave that 5 stars. And then we come to the rest of the books, which I actually do have a pile of here. So I'm going to start with this one, which is the one non-fiction that I gave 5 stars to this year, and that is Stan Grant's Talking to My Country. So Stan Grant is an Indigenous journalist in Australia. He's spent a lot of time working around the world for agencies such as CNN, I think. And so this was part memoir, but mostly it was a discussion of what people in Australia really need to know about what it is actually like to be an Indigenous person in Australia and the generational trauma that exists. So even those that haven't actually experienced the worst that Australia has done to its Indigenous people, they still have trauma because their families, their parents, their grandparents, they all went through the trauma of colonisation, the trauma of the White Australia policy, the trauma of the stolen generation. And that still gives trauma to people who are their descendants. And so this was a very honest look at what it's like to try and cope with that generational trauma and how important country is in dealing with that. So it is well worth a read. I thoroughly recommend it. So that is Talking to My Country by Stan Grant. The next couple of books are in a series that you all know that I love, and that are Magic for Nothing and Tricks for Free by Shauna Maguire. These are books 6 and 7 in the Encrypted series. I was actually almost surprised that these were on my list of 5-star books, because these are the 2 books that are about Antimony Price, who's the youngest sister of the 3 Price siblings, and I am a fan of Verity, who's the older sister. And there is some tension between Antimony and Verity, but they were very intriguing, very gripping reads, involving espionage and, of course, encryptids, so, mythical creatures and all that sort of thing. And there is romance, and there is the circus, and there are theme parks and roller derby, and it's just a great deal of fun. So I always recommend this series. It's a great urban fantasy series, and I really recommend it. And these are the 2 most recent books, Magic for Nothing and Tricks for Free by Shauna Maguire. So the next thing is a novella, and that is Binti, The Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor. This is the final in the Binti trilogy of novellas, and I couldn't put it down. I really couldn't put it down. It was exciting and it went in directions that I really wasn't expecting, and it feels like it's all wrapped up, and then it goes to hell again, and then things happen that was like, did that really just happen? And then suddenly things go in yet another direction. So this is science fiction, but very much about identity and knowing who you are, where you came from, but also where you're going and what you want, and standing up for what you want and what you believe in when in the face of conflict, basically. So this is really, really good. I really, really recommend the Binti series by Nadia Corfo. I also have another one here, which is Catching Telacrow by Amberlynn Quamolina and Ezekiel Quamolina. These are Indigenous Australian writers from Perth, a pair of siblings, and this is their latest piece. It's YA. And it's hard to describe because I think traditionally it would be described as a bit of a supernatural fantasy, maybe. Not really, it's set in the real world, but there are supernatural elements, and there is a mystery, but I dread to call it supernatural. There are ghosts in some fashion, so it's a bit of a ghost story as well as a murder mystery, but it is so entrenched in the way that Indigenous people think about life and death and what's in between that it's not fantasy as you know it, but it is so good. Most of it is in prose. There are chapters that are almost poetry in that it's very short sentences and it's told as someone telling their story. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating and absolutely lovely, and I really, really loved this book. So it's Catching Telacrow by Amberlynn and Ezekiel Quamolina. We have now an anthology that you will have seen me talk about before, which is Mother of Invention, edited by Rivka Rafal and Tansy Rain Roberts. This is one that I backed on Kickstarter, and it's another 12th Planet Press anthology, and this one is about artificial intelligence, but it is artificial intelligence from a non-male perspective. So it is where the creators are female or other gendered, or not non-binary, or the AIs themselves are female or non-binary, rather than the male perspective that AI stories usually have. So it's absolutely fascinating. There are lots of really interesting stories in this. I really do need to sit down and read it again because I don't think I picked up everything that was in it, but some really, really great stories about AIs and artificial intelligence from perspectives that you possibly haven't seen before. So I really recommend it. That, Mother of Invention. And then the last book on my pile is this one. It's Restoration by Angela Slatter. It's the third and final book in this particular trilogy in the Verity Fastbinder series. I can't say too much about it because I don't want to spoil the previous two books if you haven't read them. But it's urban fantasy set in Brisbane. It is the culmination of the previous two stories. Verity's got herself into quite a bind and has to try and figure out how to solve her mysteries that she needs to solve, but also how to get herself out of trouble without her family coming to harm. So, yeah, there are angels and gods and supernatural creatures, and it's in Brisbane. And possibly my favourite bit of the entire book was when our heroine went home quite tired and for dinner made herself Vegemite and cheese on toast, which is something I've eaten quite a lot over my life, and it is very Australian. But it's a really, really great story, a really, really great conclusion to a trilogy, but it also leaves a lot open. I'm really hoping there will be more Verity Fastbinder books from Angela Slatter because there is a lot yet that hasn't been explored. But yeah, definitely a 5-star read. So definitely try and pick up this series. It starts with Vigil by Angela Slatter, but this is Restoration. And those are my 5-star books for 2018. Ask me questions about them in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of those books in the comments below. I really, really recommend all of these. They're all great reads for different reasons. So yeah, which is why I gave them 5 stars. Because while I tend to give 4 stars quite a bit, I don't actually give 5 stars all that often. So that is less than 10 books that I gave 5-star ratings to. But yeah, that's all I've got to say for the moment, and I will see you all again really soon. Bye.